His palace walls could not keep him safe, but within them he found solace. Rome was a city of extremes, its opulence and extravagance often spilling into the night, and for the emperor, the day rarely started. Before the night had ended, a night's rest, though seemingly simple, was never tranquil. The luxuries that surrounded him were meant to soothe, yet they also spoke of a life lived in constant vigilance. Fine linen sheets and mattresses stuffed with down were comforting, but the iron-wrought bed frame was a silent reminder of the fragility of even imperial life. Surrounded by enemies, both real and imagined, sleep was often a stolen luxury. The emperor woke, therefore, not to the gentle lull of a peaceful slumber, but to the insistent tugs of consciousness. A thief in the night stealing away to the clamor and demands of daylight. Even dreams had to be earned in the flickering lamplight, surrounded by loyal guards whose faces were half seen, half imagined in the shadows. The emperor's baths were a ritual of both indulgence and necessity. He sank into the warm embrace of the water, the heat soothing tired muscles and easing weary bones. Steam rose around him, carrying with it the scent of fragrant oils and exotic perfumes, a heady mix that both relaxed and invigorated. The marble walls, cool to the touch, provided a stark contrast to the scalding water, anchoring him to the present. Slaves, oiled and ready, scrubbed and massaged his body, their touch firm but gentle. Years of toil etched lines on their faces, mirroring the passage of time on the emperor himself. Each scrape of the scraper, each dab of the sponge, was a testament to the cost of living a life so public, so scrutinized. The baths were more than just a cleansing ritual. They were a public spectacle. Warm oil was poured over his head, running down his face and neck, leaving shimmering trails in its wake. A slave wiped him dry, the rough edge of the towel biting into his damp skin, but it was a necessary discomfort, a small price to pay for the sleek, smooth perfection that followed. Then came the perfume, a cloying mix of exotic scents designed to linger long after he had left the baths. In this private moment, the emperor was stripped bare, both physically and metaphorically. His vulnerabilities laid open for all to see, yet hidden from the prying eyes of the public. For a fleeting moment, he was just another man seeking solace and renewal. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the true weight of his position pressed down on the emperor. It was a burden he carried alone, even amidst the bustle of his court. He dressed, his toga carefully draped, to project an image of power and control. Underneath the heavy fabric, his limbs felt oddly leaden, the silken undergarments clinging to him like a second skin. A golden brooch, a gift from a vanquished king, secured the toga in place, but it was a stark, unyielding ornament against his soft flesh. Every movement was a negotiation between the rigid demands of his attire and the fluid grace required of a leader. He moved, therefore, not as a man of leisure, but as a puppet on invisible strings. Each gesture measured, each turn deliberate. The emperor's breakfast mirrored the austerity of his bath. No riot of colors or flavors, no smorgasbord of delicacies, just the basics. The staff of life, bread dipped into honey. Wine, perhaps, and fruit plucked fresh from the season's bounty. It was a far cry from the feasts that graced his table at state banquets, where goblets overflowed with vintage and platters piled high with exotic meats and rare seafood. Yet this Spartan meal held a certain quiet dignity, a reflection of the emperor's own disciplined nature. He ate slowly, savoring the simple flavors that danced on his tongue. The bread, still warm from the oven, soaked up the sweet nectar of honey, while the wine, sharp and bracing, cut through the richness of the meal. Fresh figs and grapes, plump and juicy, burst in his mouth, a symphony of textures and tastes that were both humble and satisfying. Each bite was a conscious choice, a rejection of excess in favor of quiet, unadorned sustenance. Yet even in this intimate setting, the specter of the empire loomed large. Servants moved through the room with ghost-like grace, their footsteps barely disturbing the stillness. Their faces, though close, were still distant, their eyes downcast, their words clipped and to the point. They, too, lived in the shadow of the empire, their lives as regimented and controlled as his own. A servant poured wine, his hand steady and sure, never letting the bottle touch his lips. Another offered fruit, his fingers delicately tracing the contours of the dish. All the while, Their eyes remained fixed on the ground, their gazes unwavering in their devotion to duty. Even in the quietest corners of the palace, the rules of the court held sway. There was no room for individuality, no space for personal expression. Olte were cogs in the imperial machine, their humanity sacrificed at the altar of service. For the emperor, this stark reality was a constant companion. The faces around him were both familiar and alien. He knew their names, their histories, their families, yet he could never truly connect with them, never truly know them. They were bound to him by duty, not by choice. And in this, he was their emperor and they were his subjects, forever separated by the invisible barriers of rank and obligation. As the morning sun streamed through the windows of his private chambers, the emperor found solace in the simple rituals of the day. He would don a plain white tunic, a stark contrast to the opulent fabrics reserved for public appearances. In this quiet solitude, he was not the august ruler of Rome, but a private citizen enjoying a private moment. The tunic, a symbol of simplicity, allowed him to shed, if only for a moment, the weight of the empire. It was a quiet rebellion against the grandeur that consumed his waking hours, a small act of defiance against the gilded cage of his existence. The coarse texture of the linen brushed against his skin, grounding him to the present. It was a tactile reminder of the everyday, a break from the suffocating finery. That was his uniform of state, and as he slipped it on, he drew strength from its unadorned grace. Finding a moment's respite from the relentless demands of his public life, he would stroll through the extensive gardens of the palace, their manicured paths offering a momentary escape from the rigors of imperial life. Here, amidst the fragrant blooms and rustling foliage, he could lose himself in the tranquility of the moment. The vibrant colors of the flowers, the soft murmur of fountains, the melodic songs of birds, all conspired to create a hushed sanctuary. He walked slowly, his footsteps muffled by the soft gravel beneath his feet. The gentle breeze played through the branches, stirring the leaves into a soft, rustling chorus. Each step was a negotiation between the strictures of his station and the desires of his heart. He could not afford to linger too long in this haven, but each visit was a restorative balm, a quiet interlude in the clamor of his existence. For the emperor, such moments were precious commodities, bought and sold at the highest prices. To be alone was a luxury. To be oneself an extra. The tight script of his daily life offered few, if any, opportunities for deviation. His days were packed with mandatory meetings, imperial decrees, and public appearances, leaving little, if any, room for spontaneity or privacy. He had mastered the art of appearing in public, playing the role of the benevolent, omnipotent ruler with practiced ease. Behind closed doors, however, the mask slipped, revealing the anxieties and uncertainties of a man grappling with the crushing weight of his responsibilities. In this internal conflict, he became a study in contrasts, a ruler known for his grandiosity now reduced to the confines of his private chambers, a prisoner of his own making. In these intimate spaces, he sought refuge, not from external threats, but from the expectations that defined his public life. The emperor's inner sanctum was his fortress, a place where the cacophony of imperial life faded into the background, replaced by the soft murmurs of domesticity. Within these four walls, he could shed the heavy mantle of authority, if only for a moment, and be just a man. Ewald Reed losing himself in the written word, or rite, pouring his thoughts onto papyrus, finding release through the scratch of his quill. These were not the pronouncements of a ruler, but the musings of a private citizen. Music, too, might fill the air, the notes weaving their magic, momentarily suspending the burdens of his office. For in the realm of music, there were no subjects and no rulers, only the shared experience of human emotion. Sometimes he would receive friends or family, engaging in polite conversation, sharing laughter and stories. These were not political allies or ambitious courtiers, but individuals who knew him on a personal level, who had seen him not as the emperor, but as a friend, a brother, a father. Such moments were precious oases in the vast desert of his imperial life, offering glimpses of a different existence, one where power and prestige had no hold. These private pastimes were not mere distractions. They were affirmations of his humanity, reminders that despite the vastness of his empire, he was not immune to the simple joys and comforts of life. They were acts of defiance, subtle gestures that asserted his individuality in the face of the overwhelming demands of his station. In these quiet moments, he found the strength to endure the trials of his office, the solace to weather the storms of imperial life. For in the sanctuary of his private chambers, he was not the emperor, but just a man, engaged in the simple pursuits that gave meaning to his existence. This is part one of the quiet life of the Roman emperor. The villas of the emperors. A tranquil retreat, the sprawling complex of the imperial palace was a labyrinth of rooms and courtyards, each with its own purpose and activity. Amidst this bustling chaos, the emperors found solace in their villas, particularly those situated along the Appian Way, the road that led to Brindisi, the gateway to the east. These villas were more than just country homes. They were sanctuaries of tranquility and beauty where the emperors could escape the clamor of the city and reconnect with nature. One of the most famous of these retreats was the Villa of the Quintili, which became the property of Emperor Hadrian after the death of its original owner, the philosopher Pliny the Younger. It was here in this very villa that the emperor hosted the great philosopher Epictetus, who later recounted their conversations in his famous work, Discourses. Imagine a gathering of two brilliant minds, an emperor and a philosopher, discussing the nature of the universe, the purpose of life, and the pursuit of happiness. The villa itself was a testament to Roman ingenuity and aesthetic refinement. Its gardens were a masterful blend of form and function, combining beauty and utility in a harmonious whole. Picture lush, manicured lawns, dotted with elegant statues and fountains, all bathed in the golden glow of the Mediterranean sun. The scent of roses and other exotic flowers mingled with the fresh fragrance of herbs and spices, creating an intoxicating aroma that lingered in the air. The sound of birdsong and the gentle murmur of fountains provided a soothing soundtrack to the tranquility of the scene. Another notable villa along the Appian Way was the Villa of Caesares, renowned for its exquisite frescoes. One of the most captivating is a depiction of the legendary Garden of Adonis, a mythical paradise of unparalleled beauty and abundance. Imagine yourself standing before this fresco, gazing at the vibrant colors and intricate details as you lose yourself in the rich tapestry of mythology and artistry. And when you return to the present, realize that you are standing in the actual garden that inspired this masterpiece. The real Villa of Caesares was no less enchanting. Its gardens were a feast for the eyes and the soul, with winding paths that meandered through groves of olive and fig trees, leading to secluded fountains and hidden grounds. Each turn revealed a new surprise, a different facet of nature's beauty. Whether the emperor desired solitude or companionship, these villas provided the perfect setting. Surrounded by nature's splendor, he could converse with his courtiers or engage in lively discussions with philosophers and artists. The villas were also centers of culture and intellectual discourse, attracting poets, historians, and scholars from across the empire. In this serene environment, the barriers between ruler and subject seemed to dissolve, giving way to genuine camaraderie and the free exchange of ideas. A day in the life of an emperor. Finding solace in nature amidst the grandeur and opulence of the Roman Empire, Emperor Marcus Aurelius found solace in the simple pleasures of nature. His Meditations, a collection of personal reflections and philosophical musings, provides us with a glimpse into the mind of one of history's most revered leaders. Imagine yourself in the heart of ancient Rome, surrounded by the sights, sounds, and smells of the bustling city. The Colosseum roars with the excitement of the latest gladiatorial combat, while merchants hawk their wares in the Forum. But amidst this clamor, you find a moment of tranquility in the peaceful solitude of your garden. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, you feel the heat of the day upon you. It's a time for rest, a time for reflection. So you seek out the shade of a leafy tree, perhaps a fig or an olive, and settle down upon a nearby stone. The rough texture of the stone is cool beneath your touch, providing a welcome contrast to the warmth of the day. Closing your eyes, you inhale deeply, letting the scent of blossoms and herbs fill your senses. In this moment of quiet contemplation, you are far from the pressures and responsibilities of the empire. There are no more decisions to be made, no more problems to be solved. You are simply here in this tranquil place, enjoying the peace that surrounds you. Perhaps you reach out a hand to touch the leaves of a nearby plant, feeling their smooth, silky surface beneath your fingers. Or you might idly stroke the bark of a tree, marveling at its rough, textured surface. You might watch as a butterfly flutters past, its wings a kaleidoscope of colors against the green backdrop. Or you might listen to the gentle hum of bees as they gather pollen from nearby flowers. Time seems to slow down in this peaceful oasis. The worries and troubles of the world fade away, leaving only the present moment and the simple beauty that surrounds you. You feel a sense of calm wash over you, a feeling of serenity that you have not experienced in many days. In this moment, you are truly at peace with yourself and with the world around you. Hadrian's Villa, a monument to imperial grandeur among the emperor's country estates. None was more magnificent and awe-inspiring than Hadrian's Villa at Tivoli. This sprawling complex was not just a residence, but a monument to the power, wealth, and cultural achievements of the Roman Empire. Situated on a sprawling estate of over 300 acres, Hadrian's Villa was a microcosm of the empire itself. The grand avenues and colonnaded courtyards evoked the bustling streets of Rome, while the secluded gardens and grottos offered peaceful retreats from the public eye. The villa's design was a masterful blend of Greek and Roman architectural styles, showcasing the empire's rich cultural heritage. Imagine standing before the colossal facade of the villa, its many arches and soaring columns reaching towards the sky. You can almost hear the echoes of the past, the murmur of courtiers, and the laughter of emperors as you step inside. The interior of the villa was just as impressive, with vast halls adorned with frescoes and sculptures that celebrated Roman victories and legendary heroes. The floors were inlaid with precious stones, and the walls were hung with tapestries that depicted scenes from Roman mythology. But what truly set Hadrian's Villa apart was its extraordinary gardens. Meticulously designed and expertly maintained, they were a testament to the emperor's love of nature and beauty. Imagine wandering through these gardens, the air filled with the fragrance of exotic flowers, and the sound of birdsong. You come across a tranquil pond and its surface is adorned with colorful lotuses. In the distance, you see a temple-like structure, and as you approach it, you discover a small shrine dedicated to the gods. The presence of religion in this earthly paradise reminds you of the Roman deep-rooted beliefs and their desire to honor the divine even in the midst of luxury. The emperor's villas along the Appian Way were more than just residences. There were symbols of imperial power, cultural sophistication, and a deep appreciation for the beauty of nature. These luxurious retreats offered a sanctuary from the demands of the empire, a place where emperors could relax and recharge, surrounded by the splendor of their own making. And among them, Hadrian's Villa stood as a shining example of what could be achieved when art, architecture, and nature were brought together in perfect harmony. As we conclude our journey through the villas of the Roman emperors, we are left with a sense of awe and wonder. These magnificent estates not only provide a glimpse into the lavish lifestyles of some of history's most powerful rulers, but also serve as a reminder of the enduring legacy of Roman culture and refinement. The fusion of grandeur and tranquility, of power and peace, that these villas embodied continues to resonate with us today. They stand as silent witnesses to the glory of a bygone era, inviting us to pause and appreciate the beauty that once graced these hallowed grounds. For a ruler of an empire, knowledge was not just a tool. It was a source of great comfort and a quiet escape. These libraries were not public halls of knowledge, but private, intimate rooms where the emperor could commune with the great minds of the past. The floor was made of smooth, polished marble, so clean it almost gleamed like a mirror, reflecting the soft glow of the oil lamps that adorned the walls. In the center of the room sat a large table crafted from a single slab of marble, its surface etched with the faded designs of mythical beasts and heroes. Around this table were chairs with tall, straight backs, inviting the emperor to sit, read, and contemplate. Above the table hung a bronze lamp suspended from a tripod, casting a warm glow over the scene. Its intricate design featuring scenes from Greek mythology added a touch of elegance to the room. Above him, the ceiling was adorned with frescoes depicting scenes from the classics. One fresco showed the goddess Athena, the patron deity of wisdom, while another displayed a Roman triumph, celebrating the victories of Rome's great generals. These images served as a constant reminder of the rich cultural heritage he was a part of, anchoring him to the traditions that had shaped his world. On the walls around him were shelves holding not just books, but also precious artifacts from across the empire. There were statues of ancient Greek philosophers, their faces weathered with age, and busts of Roman emperors who had come before him. Each artifact was not just an object, but a symbol of the continuity of knowledge and power that he, as the current emperor, was a part of. The library wasn't just a place to store scrolls and books. It was a living testament to the vastness of human thought and experience. As the emperor stepped into the library, he was enveloped in the scent of old papyrus, cedarwood, and the faint, sweet scent of oil used to make the ink. This aroma wasn't just pleasant. It was a sensory link to the past, a way of making the vast span of human history feel tangible. The shelves holding the scrolls were crafted from polished cedarwood, their surfaces gleaming softly in the lamplight. The scrolls themselves were not mere documents, but artifacts, each one a potential window into the mind of a bygone era. Some were brittle with age, their edges frayed, whispering stories of centuries past. Others were newer, their surfaces still smooth, representing the ongoing flow of knowledge through the empire. In the far corner of the room, near the writing desk, sat a small alcove. Within this alcove was a fountain, its water cascading gently into a basin below. The sound of running water mingled with the scent of cedarwood and papyrus, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. The fountain was not just a decorative element, but a symbol of the flow of knowledge and ideas that the library represented. Just as water nourished the plants in the garden, so too did the library nourish the mind. As the afternoon wore on, the emperor sank deeper into his chair. The weight of his responsibilities, the anxieties of ruling a vast empire, seemed to fade away. Lost in the world of words, he felt a sense of peace that only the companionship of great minds could bring. The library wasn't just a place for him to escape from the world. It was a world in itself, and in this world, he was not the emperor, but a student, a reader, and most importantly, a human being. A hush fell over the room, broken only by the faint crackling of the oil lamp, as it illuminated the faded script of an ancient scroll. Outside, the bustle of the imperial palace faded into the background, leaving the emperor in the heart of an ancient wood, surrounded by the whispers of long-dead scholars and the scent of aged papyrus. Within these four walls, there were no courtiers vying for attention, no soldiers demanding readiness, only the rustle of pages turning and the quiet scratching of a stylus as it traced the grooves of a wax tablet. For in this sanctuary, the emperor found not just knowledge, but solace. His reign might have been marked by the clash of arms and the complexities of statecraft, but here, among the timeless words of the ancients, he found a moment's respite. The library was his refuge, a place where the worries of the world dissolved into the soft glow of the lamplight, leaving behind only the quiet joy of discovery and the comfort of timeless wisdom. Imagine, if you will, the emperor striding purposefully through the bustling halls of his palace, his every step echoing with the weight of his imperial duty. The mosaic floor beneath his feet, a tapestry of vibrant colors, mirroring the richness of the empire he ruled. Sunlight streamed through high windows, illuminating dust motes, dancing in the air, each speck a tiny sunbeam in miniature. The halls themselves were adorned with frescoes, their vivid hues telling tales of legendary heroes and past imperial triumphs. But despite the grandeur, the emperor felt a familiar restlessness, a yearning for a place of quiet, a sanctuary where he could shed the burdens of his crown, even for a stolen moment. He remembered then the sanctuary that awaited him, the library where the whispers of ancient wisdom mingled with the scent of aged papyrus. With a murmured word to his guard, the emperor turned, leaving the clamor of the palace behind and seeking solace in the embrace of books. Now, picture the emperor stepping into the cool, dimly lit interior of his library. The air within was still, fragrant with the scent of cedarwood and old parchment. As his eyes adjusted to the gloom, he saw the rows upon rows of scrolls meticulously stored in their cubbyholes. Each scroll held countless words, countless stories, and countless pieces of knowledge. They were not merely texts, they were vessels of history, their fragile forms whispering tales of civilizations long gone. The emperor walked slowly, almost reverently between the shelves, running his fingers lightly along the cool, smooth surface of the cedarwood. It was a tactile connection to the past, a grounding reminder of the weight of tradition that rested upon his shoulders. As he continued his silent pilgrimage, his gaze fell upon a particular scroll, its edges worn and faded, yet its presence compelling. Intrigued, the emperor carefully unrolled the scroll, revealing faded ink that had bled softly into the papyrus, like tears staining an ancient letter. With a tilt of his head, he began to read, his voice hushed, in awe of the words that had survived the relentless march of time. As the afternoon shadows lengthened outside, the Emperor delved deeper into the heart of the scroll. Each word was a brushstroke, painting a vivid picture of a world long past, and the Emperor, lost in the text, became a silent observer, transported to a time when Roman legions marched under a different sun and the echoes of Greece were still fresh in the ears of men, and when at last the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars pricked the darkening sky. The Emperor closed the scroll, his heart full, his mind enriched. He was not merely an emperor, he was a student of life, a seeker of wisdom, and in this quiet room, he had found both. So too, can you find solace in the written word? Dear listener, let the stories you read be your escape, your education, and your comfort. Just as the Emperor found wisdom in the fading ink of ancient scrolls, may you discover enlightenment in the pages that fall open to your gaze. For in the realm of books, the boundaries of time are blurred, and the company of great minds, both living and long departed, is always at hand. Before you drift off to sleep, I invite you to embark on a journey to the heart of the Roman Empire. Close your eyes and imagine yourself standing in the grand courtyard of an imperial palace. The air is alive with the murmur of fountains and the scent of orange blossoms from the nearby gardens. You can hear the distant echo of a blacksmith's hammer, as well as the murmur of servants and courtiers going about their evening routines. Straight ahead, you see a massive archway leading to the peristyle, a colonnaded courtyard that symbolizes the very core of this imperial residence. To your right is a row of shops and taverns, their awnings providing a mosaic of light and shadow on the pavement. And to your left, you notice the entrance to the Emperor's private apartments. The peristyle beckons, promising a glimpse into the heart of the empire. So enter the peristyle, and let the grandeur of this sacred space envelop you. Take a moment to appreciate the sight of white marble columns stretching towards the heavens, their intricate capitals adorned with mythical creatures and scenes from Roman legends. Above you, the sky is a brilliant blue, dotted with puffy clouds that lazily drift across the vast expanse. The soft light filters through the leaves of ancient trees growing between the columns, creating a dappled pattern on the marble floor. In the center of the peristyle, you notice a group of nobles engaged in animated conversation, their voices low and their gestures expressive. Nearby, a senator sits alone, deep in thought, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the columns. Across the courtyard, you see a group of musicians tuning their instruments, preparing to serenade the evening with enchanting melodies. Take a stroll through the peristyle, observing the various sights and sounds of imperial life. The rhythmic clatter of a blacksmith's hammer resounds from a nearby shop, mingling with the murmur of a fountain in the center of the courtyard. You can hear the murmur of a nearby fountain as water cascades over a stone basin, its soothing sound a counterpoint to the lively chatter. The air is alive with the scent of orange blossoms from the nearby gardens, mingling with the aroma of roasting meat and freshly baked bread wafting from the kitchens. And above it all, there's a faint metallic temps, the lingering scent of Rome's martial glory and the blood of 1,000 vanquished foes. This is the heart of the empire. Amidst the grandeur and the glory, the murmur of daily life continues. Soldiers polish their armor, servants hurry with trays laden with food and wine, and musicians tune their instruments, ready to fill the night with song and mirth. All the while, the emperor's watchful gaze, symbolized by the keen eyes of statuesque marble sentinels, ensures that order and magnificence prevail. Here, amidst the timeless grandeur, you are but a fleeting visitor, a silent witness to the echoes of an era long past. May the spirit of ancient Rome inspire you to embrace the beauty of life, to pursue excellence in all your endeavors, and to strive for greatness in your own story. And now, dear listener, let the spirit of ancient Rome infuse your dreams. Sleep well, and may your journey through life be filled with the echoes of courage, wisdom, and enduring legacy. The Palatine Hill was more than just a place of power and grandeur. It was also a place of quiet, domestic rhythm, where emperors found solace amidst the chaos of the ancient world. The Palatine Hill was the emperor's palace, the seat of government, the place where decisions were made that affected millions of people. Yet within its vast complex, There were many places of peace and tranquility that few outsiders ever saw. We will start our journey through the Rainforest Palace by exploring the private chambers where the imperial family lived. The rooms were lavishly decorated with the finest furniture and artwork that the empire had to offer. The walls were covered in beautiful frescoes, depicting scenes from mythology and history, while the floors were adorned with intricate mosaics. Soft carpets muffled the sound of footsteps, creating an atmosphere of hushed reverence. The air was scented with the fragrance of flowers and incense, masking any hint of stale waste or cooking aromas. In these chambers, the emperor and his family enjoyed the comforts of home, far from the prying eyes of the public. Imagine waking up in the emperor's bedroom, the morning light streaming in through the windows, illuminating the rich colors of the tapestries that adorned the walls. The bed is made of intricately carved ivory and gold, piled high with cushions and fine linens. Sunlight glints off the golden hair of a young child playing on the floor, their laughter echoing softly in the vast chamber. A slave girl dressed in white linen stands nearby, patiently waiting to attend to the needs of the emperor's wife as she prepares for the day. Outside, the bustling activity of the city is muffled by the thick walls of the palace, allowing for a rare moment of peace and quiet. It is a scene of domestic bliss, far removed from the intrigues and dangers of imperial life. Yet to Venire, in the heart of the emperor's private chambers, the weight of power is never far away. The emperor may steal moments of leisure with his family, but he is always aware of the responsibilities that come with his position. A visitor may arrive at any moment, demanding his attention, or news from the provinces may bring fresh challenges and decisions to make. Even in the quietest corners of the palace, the reality of imperial life persists, a constant reminder that true power comes at a price. As we continue our exploration of the emperor's palace, we will venture into the vast reception rooms and audience halls where the emperor received guests and conducted business. These rooms were much larger than the emperor's private chambers, with high ceilings and large windows that allowed natural light to flood in. They were decorated in a more subdued style, with simpler frescoes and less ornate furniture, befitting of a space designed for entertaining. The floors were made of marble or stone, polished to a high shine, and the walls were adorned with tapestries that depicted scenes of war and diplomacy. In these halls, the emperor was a host, a monarch receiving ambassadors, dignitaries, and visiting rulers. The weight of the empire was felt in every step, every conversation, every interaction. The fate of provinces, the balance of power in the Mediterranean, and the lives of millions of subjects could be decided in these very rooms. But even in this grand setting, there were moments of quiet and contemplation. Imagine standing in the throne room as the emperor enters, his purple robes flowing behind him like waves of the sea. The courtiers bow before him, their voices hushed and respectful. The emperor takes his place on the throne, its golden surface glinting in the torchlight, and surveys the room. His gaze is steady, his expression impassive, hiding the turmoil of thoughts and decisions that rage within. A visitor approaches, bearing gifts and words of diplomacy. The emperor listens intently, his eyes narrowed in thought, weighing every word, every gesture. The fate of kingdoms hangs in the balance as the two leaders negotiate, each seeking advantage in a game of power and prestige. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows across the palace, the emperor retires to his private chambers, leaving behind the weight of empire and the expectations of his court. He closes the doors to his study, a sanctuary where he can shed the burden of kingship and lose himself in the written word. The room is dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of papyrus and ink. Scrolls and books are piled high on the desk, their pages filled with the emperor's own handwriting, thoughts and ideas scrawled in elegant Roman script. For a brief moment, he forgets his imperial duties and responsibilities, and simply revels in the joy of learning and discovery, the thrill of a new idea, the satisfaction of a difficult passage, the pleasure of a well-turned praise. All these are his alone in this quiet room, far from the noise and clamor of the palace court. Yet even there, the emperor cannot escape the demands of his station entirely. A slave enters quietly, breaking the silence with a low bow and a whispered report. A province is in revolt. An ambassador awaits an audience. A senator demands a decree. The emperor acknowledges each request with a nod, his voice a low murmur that does not disturb the quiet of his study. The weight of empire is never far away, but for now, he allows himself the luxury of quiet contemplation. The heart of the palace was the series of courtyards, open to the sky, where the air was still and the only sound was the soft cooing of doves. These were places of private contemplation, a series of outdoor rooms that were a vital part of the palace's design. In the center of a courtyard, there might be a small pond with lily pads floating on the still water. Their gentle green shapes, a calm presence in the midst of the marble and stone. A colonnade would run along the edges of the courtyard, providing shade and a cool, private walkway. The columns, made of smooth, white marble, stood in perfect, silent rows. Their classical forms, a beautiful expression of order and grace. In these courtyards, emperors found solace from the pressures of ruling one of the largest empires in the ancient world. They were surrounded by lush gardens filled with fragrant flowers and trees that provided a sense of tranquility and peace. The sound of birdsong mingled with the gentle trickle of fountains, creating a soothing atmosphere that was conducive to relaxation and reflection. There were places for quiet walks and deep thought, for intimate conversations and peaceful meditation. The courtyards were designed not just for the emperor's enjoyment, but also as a symbol of imperial power and wealth. The carefully manicured gardens and the use of expensive materials such as marble and gold showcased the resources and manpower at the emperor's command. They were a testament to the glories of Rome and a reminder of the emperor, Lasti, head of one of the most advanced civilizations in the known world. While the palaces and villas of ancient Rome are famous for their opulence and luxury, it is important to remember that they were not just places of extravagance and excess. They were also designed to be functional and practical, serving as both homes and workplaces for the elite class of Roman society. The architecture and layout of these buildings were carefully planned to optimize space and efficiency, while still providing for the comfort and convenience of their inhabitants. For example, the use of courtyards and atriums in Roman architecture allowed for natural light and ventilation to be brought into the center of the building, which helped to keep the indoor spaces cool and pleasant during the hot Roman summers. Similarly, the development of running water and underfloor heating systems allowed for greater hygiene and comfort within the homes and palaces of the wealthy Romans. Despite the grandeur and opulence, there was a great deal of thought that went into making these spaces livable and hospitable. The next part of our journey takes us to the base of the Palatine Hill, where we will explore the vast network of tunnels and chambers that lay beneath the emperor's palace. These subterranean passages were used for a variety of purposes, including storage, as well as a secret means of transportation. The air in these underground chambers was cool and damp, a welcome respite from the heat of the summer sun. The flickering light of oil lamps revealed the rough-hewn stones of the walls and the faces of those who toiled in the darkness. Some chambers were used for the storage of valuable objects and precious metals, while others served as living quarters for slaves and servants who worked in the palace. The network of tunnels was a hidden world beneath the bustling activity of the imperial court, a place where the weight of the empire was forgotten and the necessities of daily life were met in the dim lamplight. This was the underground labyrinth beneath the emperor's palace, a hidden world of tunnels and chambers that played a vital role in the functioning of imperial Rome. In the grand tapestry of ancient Rome, where emperors rose and fell like the tides and the Senate's intrigues echoed through the ages, there existed a rare and almost forgotten art, the art of doing nothing. For the Roman emperors, those who had tasted the heady wine of absolute power, the concept of doing nothing was a foreign one. Their days were packed with audiences, banquets, and military reviews, and their minds were constantly racing with the machinations of the empire. But in the midst of this ceaseless activity, some emperors found solace in the quiet corners of the sprawling metropolis, in the neglected practice of doing absolutely nothing. The idea of doing nothing was not a passive one. It was a conscious choice to step back from the relentless demands of imperial life and to savor the present moment. It was a rejection of the prevailing ethos of the time, which glorified busyness and saw leisure as a waste of precious time. The emperors who embraced this philosophy were not idle. They were not simply lounging about in their palaces or indulging in the pleasures of the flesh. They were actively choosing to disconnect from the pressures of the empire and to focus on the simple joys of the present. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, is perhaps the most famous practitioner of this art. In his personal journal, a collection of his thoughts and meditations, he frequently returns to the theme of doing nothing. He writes, When you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. And later, you could stop being upset right now if you chose to. The power to do so is in your hands. Your willingness to remain disturbed is all that stands in your way. Marcus Aurelius understood that in the pursuit of happiness, we often get in our own way. We dwell on the past or worry about the future, but in doing so, we fail to appreciate the present moment. He saw the value of doing nothing as a way to cultivate inner peace, to focus on the present and to appreciate the beauty of life. His approach to doing nothing was not a retreat from the world, but rather an engagement with it. He believed that by detaching ourselves from the ceaseless demands of the world, we can better understand and appreciate it. In his own words, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice. By doing nothing, Marcus Aurelius suggests, we can rise above the pettiness and injustice of the world and find true inner peace. Another emperor who appreciated the value of doing nothing was Emperor Hadrian. During his travels, Hadrian would often stop at small towns and villages and engage in the simple activities of the common people. He would visit local workshops and tradesmen and observe their craft firsthand. He would attend local festivals and games and mingle with the townspeople. In doing so, Hadrian was not only broadening his perspective, but he was also finding joy in the simple things in life. One particular incident from his travels in Greece stands out as an example of his appreciation for the ordinary. According to the writings of his biographer, Cassius Dio, Hadrian decided to take on the persona of a private citizen and walked barefoot through the streets of Athens. He wanted to experience the city without the pomp and circumstance of his imperial status. As he walked, he observed the sights and sounds of the city, the bustling crowds, the vendors hawking their wares, the laughter of children playing in the streets. He took in the aromas of baking bread, fresh fish and sweet pastries wafting from the open windows of houses and shops. This simple act of walking through the city was not just a way for Hadrian to connect with the common people, but it was also a form of meditation. It allowed him to focus on the present moment and to appreciate the beauty of the everyday. In the midst of his busy imperial duties, Hadrian found moments of stillness and reflection. By stripping away the trappings of his power and immersing himself in the everyday life of his subjects, he was able to find a deep sense of contentment and joy. Of course, the art of doing nothing was not always easy to practice. The demands of the empire were constant, and the distractions of daily life were many. But even amidst the chaos, these emperors found ways to carve out moments of stillness. They found solace in the quiet beauty of nature, the tranquility of a garden, or the peacefulness of a walk along the Tiber River. They sought out the company of those who shared their love of simplicity, and they made a conscious effort to disconnect from the noise and bustle of the city. But how did they manage to do nothing? How did they escape the clutches of a world that valued busyness above all else? Well, it started with a change of mindset. It was a conscious decision to reject the prevailing norms and to find joy in the simple things in life. They discovered that doing nothing didn't mean being lazy or unproductive. It meant focusing on what truly mattered, on living in the present moment and appreciating the beauty of everyday life. They learned that by doing nothing, they could find a deeper sense of contentment and joy. Now, you might be thinking that this has nothing to do with you, that you are too busy to worry about the art of doing nothing, but I believe that we can all learn from these ancient emperors. In our fast-paced modern world, we are constantly bombarded with distractions. We have an endless to-do list and a million things to worry about. It's easy to get caught up in the frenzy and to forget to appreciate the present moment. But as these emperors discovered, doing nothing can be a powerful antidote to the chaos of modern life. It can help us to focus on what truly matters, to find joy in the simple things in life, and to cultivate a deeper sense of peace and contentment. So I encourage you to take a few moments throughout your day to practice the art of doing nothing. Sit in silence, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. Let go of the distractions and worries of the world and just be present in the moment. You might be surprised at how much joy and contentment you can find in doing absolutely nothing. The afternoons were often filled not with shouts of war or grand declarations, but with the quiet, careful work of diplomacy and administration. These were the moments when the emperor was not a commander, but a statesman. These parts of his day were like islands of calm in a sea of activity. They provided a chance for the emperor to pause, reflect, and recharge. They were moments of simplicity in a life that was anything but. These quiet moments were not just about relaxation. They were also an essential part of the emperor's job. He was not just a warrior emperor. He was also a diplomat, an administrator, and a lawmaker. He had to be able to handle a wide range of tasks and situations, and that included knowing when to be still. Sometimes these quiet moments were spent alone in his private quarters. The emperor would retreat to his chambers, leaving the noise and bustle of court life behind. Here, in the sanctuary of his own space, he could relax and recharge. He might sit in a comfortable chair, letting the soft cushions cradle him, or he might lie down on a cushioned daybed, closing his eyes against the plush fabric. There were no visitors here, no advisors, no petitioners. It was just the emperor and his thoughts. These moments were rare, precious, and deeply personal. They gave the emperor a chance to be himself, away from the weight of the crown and the demands of his many roles. He might lose himself in a book, reading about faraway lands or ancient histories, or he might simply stare out of a window, watching the world go by. It didn't matter what he did. As long as he was alone, away from the constant demands of court life, he was content. The soft fabrics of his bedchamber seemed to muffle the sounds of the outside world, allowing him a rare moment of tranquility. These moments of solitude were not just about rest, though they were also a time for reflection and planning. The emperor was a man of action, but he was also a man of strategy. He knew that to be successful, he needed to take a step back and think things through. So while he enjoyed the luxury of his bedchamber, he would also go over plans and strategies for upcoming campaigns or political negotiations. He might pace the room, his mind working, or he might sit down at a small table, taking notes on a papyrus scroll. These moments of quiet reflection were essential to the emperor. They gave him a chance to clear his head, to focus, and to plan. They were a time for him to be strategic, to think about the big picture and to make sure that he was always ahead of the game. In the stillness of his bedchamber, the emperor found the clarity and focus he needed to navigate the complexities of his life. There were other times when the emperor found quiet in the midst of the bustling city. The afternoon heat could be stifling in the palace, so the emperor would sometimes decide to take a walk outside the palace walls. He would wander through the city, taking in the sights and sounds. He might visit a market, watching the vendors sell their wares, or he might stroll through a park, enjoying the greenery and the flowers. During these walks, the emperor was not just sightseeing. He was also gathering intelligence. He would talk to merchants, soldiers, and ordinary citizens, getting their perspectives on how the empire was doing. He wanted to know how his policies were affecting people's lives, and he wanted to hear their ideas for how the empire could be improved. These walks were not just a way to get a break from the palace. They were also an important part of the emperor's job. They gave him a chance to connect with his people, to hear their concerns, and to learn about their lives. It was a way for him to stay in touch with the realities of the empire he ruled. And perhaps most importantly, it gave him a chance to be free of the pressures of court life, even if only for a little while. He wasn't truly alone during these outings. A handful of guards would accompany him, their presence a discreet reminder of the danger that always lurked nearby. Still, there was a certain freedom in the anonymity of a crowded marketplace, or the solitude of a leafy park. It was a chance to shed the heavy mantle of imperial authority and just be a regular person, even if only for a moment. And in those moments, the emperor found a different kind of peace. It was the peace of a job well done, the satisfaction of a day's work completed, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that you are making your empire a better place. And then there were the rare occasions when the emperor found quiet in the most unexpected places, in the middle of a battle or the height of a diplomatic crisis. In those moments, the emperor would draw on his inner strength, his ability to be still in the midst of chaos. It was not a conscious decision, but an instinct, a deep-seated understanding of when to be still in order to be strong. When the noise and pressure of his life threatened to overwhelm him, he would find a quiet center within himself, a place of peace that was unshakable. It was this inner strength that allowed him to endure the toughest battles and the most difficult negotiations, knowing that within him was a well of calmness that never ran dry. In the end, the emperor's ability to find quiet moments in a noisy world was not just a personal strength. It was a source of power. It allowed him to be at his best when it mattered most, to lead his armies to victory, to forge alliances with other nations, and to bring stability and prosperity to his empire. The quiet afternoons were not just a time for relaxation. They were a time for reflection, strategy, and connection. They were a chance for the emperor to be still in a world that was always in motion, to find balance in a life that was anything but. And in the stillness, he found the strength, focus, and wisdom he needed to be the great emperor his people needed. And so the afternoon wore on, a quiet counterpoint to the clamor of the morning and the anticipation of the evening. For the emperor, these moments of stillness were a necessity, a chance to recharge and refocus. It was during these quiet hours that he made his most important decisions, planned his most crucial moves, and laid the foundation for his empire's future. As the sun began its slow descent towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the vast expanse of the Roman Empire, the emperor's thoughts would turn to more than just the fading daylight. The weight of his responsibilities as the ruler of this mighty kingdom had been a constant companion throughout the day. Now, as the evening drew near, there was a growing urgency to his actions, a need to attend to both public and private matters, before the darkness of night enveloped the city. With the mid-afternoon heat beginning to subside, the emperor might rise from his seat in the Senate and make his way back to the Palatine Hill, his official residence at the heart of Rome. The journey was not a long one, but it was laden with protocol. Senators and courtiers would vie for his attention along the way, each hoping to gain a private word with their emperor. Yet despite the crowds, the emperor moved with an air of authority, his presence commanding respect and obedience from all around him. Upon his return to the palace, he would be greeted by the sight of Rome bathed in the warm hues of the setting sun. The city looked magnificent from his elevated vantage point. The sprawling houses of the wealthy nestled between the public baths and bustling shops. In the distance, the Colosseum stood as a silent sentinel, a reminder of Rome's military might and its thirst for entertainment. However, the emperor's gaze would not linger on the grandeur of the city. Instead, it would quickly move to the sky, observing the heavens as if searching for something beyond the reach of human eyes. This was not merely a habit, but a ritual deeply ingrained in his daily routine. It was during these solitary moments that the emperor found solace, a brief respite from the ceaseless demands of his position. As he watched the sun sink below the horizon, he would reflect on the events of the day, the victories and defeats, the triumphs and tragedies that had unfolded under his rule. The sky became his confidant, silently bearing witness to the emperor's thoughts, hopes, and fears. And as the first stars began to appear, dotting the dark canvas above him like celestial jewels, the emperor would make his way to a small private villa near the Palatine Hill. This was his sanctuary, a place where he could shed the heavy cloak of imperial authority and simply exist as a man. The villa was not ostentatious, nor was it excessively grand. It was a modest structure by imperial standards, yet it held within its walls a treasure trove of comforts and simple pleasures. The interior was adorned with paintings that depicted scenes from Roman mythology, each stroke of the artist's brush immortalizing tales of gods and heroes. The walls were lined with books, their spines whispering stories of distant lands and forgotten civilizations. The floors were made of polished marble, gleaming under the soft glow of oil lamps that were suspended from chains, casting dancing shadows on the walls. In the center of the villa was a courtyard filled with fragrant flowers and herbs, their colors and scents mingling in a heady perfume. A small fountain stood as a centerpiece, its water cascading gently into a basin below, creating a soothing melody that mingled with the chirping of crickets. This was a place designed not for grandeur, but for tranquility. It was a place where the emperor could escape the clamor and chaos of the imperial court and find solace in the quiet embrace of nature. He would spend hours here, walking among the fragrant plants, listening to the murmuring fountain or reading a book while reclining on a cushioned chair. Sometimes he would invite a select few to join him, his closest advisors, his family, or a group of trusted friends. On other occasions, he would keep the company of beautiful women, their laughter and chatter adding a lively tune to the peaceful ambience. In the evenings, as the temperature began to drop and the shadows grew longer, the emperor would summon his chef. Meals were a simple affair, consisting of fresh bread, fruit, cheese, and wine. The food was not presented on gold or silver platters. Instead, it was served on simple earthenware, a testament to the emperor's belief that true pleasure lay in simplicity. The grand banquet halls of the palace were reserved for official ceremonies and state dinners. For his evening meal, he would gather with his closest family members in a small, private dining room. The meal was not a lavish affair, but a simple, shared experience. They would recline on soft couches around a low, elegant table, and a few trusted servants would bring in platters of food. The conversation would be light and personal, free from the weight of state affairs. He might listen to his children's stories of their day, or discuss a small, insignificant detail of their lives. For a brief moment, the emperor was just a father, a husband, a brother. The silence between the words was as important as the words themselves. A comfortable, shared quiet that filled the room with a sense of peace. After the meal, he might retreat to a private part of the palace, a place where he could sit and simply be still. Perhaps he would sit on a couch in a small, enclosed courtyard, listening to the quiet murmur of the fountains and looking up at the stars. The sky over Rome was a canvas of inky blue and a million glittering lights. He would watch the stars with a sense of profound wonder, a small, humble figure under a vast, endless sky. He might reflect on his day, on the decisions he had made, and the challenges that lay ahead. But this was not a time for worry. It was a time for quiet reflection, for a final moment of peace before sleep. As the moon rose and cast a gentle light on the marble columns and fountains, the world would grow quieter and quieter. The distant sounds of the city would fade to a low hum, a gentle background noise that would eventually disappear altogether. The night was a time for rest, for the body to heal and the mind to find a sense of stillness. For a man who carried the weight of the world, this final, quiet ritual was a vital part of his existence. It was a time to let go of the day, to release all the tension and stress that had built up, and to prepare his mind for a deep and peaceful rest. It was in these tranquil moments that the emperor found the strength to endure another day. The grand libraries of ancient Rome were not just repositories of scrolls and tablets. They were sanctuaries for the emperor. Stepping into their hushed halls was like entering a sacred space where the whispers of antiquity danced among the towering shelves. Here, amidst the musty scent of aging parchment and the faint glow of oil lamplight, the emperor would lose himself in the timeless wisdom contained within the pages of countless books. His chambers were richly decorated, furnished with comfortable couches and decorated with artwork, depicting scenes from Roman history and mythology. But it was the library that held a special place in his heart. The carefully organized collection of scrolls and tablets covered a vast array of topics from philosophy and poetry to history and science. The emperor, patron of learning himself, took great pride in the library's vast collection. He believed that knowledge was power and that a well-read mind was essential to good governance. Many an evening would find him seated at a writing desk, a scroll unfurled before him, a quill in his hand, taking notes and making annotations in the margins. For the emperor, reading was not just a pastime. It was a duty. He saw himself as a living embodiment of Rome's cultural heritage, and he took this responsibility seriously. His private quarters were not just a place to lay one's head, but a reflection of the emperor's intellectual curiosity and his dedication to the arts and sciences. The quiet rustle of turning pages and the gentle scratching of the quill against parchment were the soundtrack of his private life. But even in this sanctuary, the burden of empire occasionally intruded. While he reveled in the company of learned scholars and enjoyed discussing philosophical treatises, he also found solace in the simple act of tending to his garden. There, amidst the rows of fragrant herbs and vegetables, he could escape the weight of his crown. His private villa was an oasis of calm in the bustling city of Rome. Its secluded location ensured that only a handful of people knew of its existence. The heavy wooden door, reinforced with iron, provided an impenetrable barrier against prying eyes and ears. Once inside, the sounds of the outside world seemed to fade away, leaving only the whisper of the wind through the trees and the song of the birds. The garden was meticulously planned. Carefully manicured hedges formed neat rows, separating the different sections with geometric precision. Within these sections, a variety of plants thrived, from the vibrant red poppies that dotted the landscape like scattered rubies to the tall, proud sunflowers that turned their golden faces towards the sun. Winding paths, paved with flat stones, invited quiet contemplation, leading the emperor through the verdant maze of greenery. At the end of one such path stood a small building, a simple structure that housed the tools needed for maintaining the garden's perfection. It was here that the emperor would often find himself in the early morning or late afternoon, not as a ruler, but as a caretaker of nature. In his hands, a pruning shears became a weapon, a sword, and a small sapling bent before him, as if acknowledging its future greatness. Each plant in the emperor's private garden was carefully chosen, not just for its aesthetic beauty, but for the symbolism it represented. Roses, with their delicate petals and thorns, were a reminder of life's complexities. Laurel trees, with their strong, enduring branches, symbolized victory and immortality. Vines, as they climbed and intertwined, represented the interconnectedness of all things. The emperor found solace in the garden's tranquility, away from the intrigues and machinations of the imperial court. Here, in the midst of nature's bounty, he could find peace. The emperor's journey through life, though marked by immense power and achievement, was not without its moments of quiet solitude. His routines, though seemingly mundane, were more than just habits. They were the threads that wove together the tapestry of his existence. His love for books offered him a portal to different worlds and ideas. His private villa was a refuge where the weight of his crown could be momentarily set aside. And in his garden, he found a connection to the natural world that soothed his troubled mind. These were the private moments that shaped the emperor, reminding us that even those who occupy the highest positions in society are not immune to the universal human need for peace, quiet, and solitude